Today, there is deep pain in the Middle East, on both sides. The world watches as Palestinians suffer the humiliation and frustration of curfews and checkpoints, a constant military presence in their cities.
But by their actions and their nervous behavior, here, for example, arresting a street trader, they merely further inflame the Palestinian hate.
Israel says it's forced to impose these measures to prevent further acts of Palestinian terror. And so the Palestinians escalate their attacks to avenge Israeli brutality and bring an end to what they consider to be the Israeli occupation. How did we get here? After World War II, the United Nations declared that the time had come for the Jews to officially return to the land of Israel and rebuild their ancient homeland. The United Nations decision was rejected by the Arab world. The very day the state was declared, Israel was attacked by 5 Arab countries. The source of the conflict is clear. The Arab nations see the Israelis as thieves, usurpers. That with the creation of the State of Israel, the Jews were stealing Arab lands. The Jews, however, have always considered Israel as their ancestral homeland, citing a divine promise and an uninterrupted Jewish presence in the land of Israel for over 3,500 years. 2 peoples, 1 land, a festering conflict. The question is, what steps has each side taken towards resolving the conflict? Towards peace? At the very inception of the state in 1947, the United Nations proposed a resolution, a compromise, to partition the land into separate Arab and Jewish states. 2 states for 2 peoples.
Palestine, where news of the United Nations decision to recommend partition brings wild jubilation among the Jewish communities in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. A vivid contrast to the bitterness felt by the Arab peoples as the troubles of the Holy Land enter a new phase, perhaps the gravest yet.
Israel accepted the plan. The Arabs rejected it and immediately instigated bloody battles to destroy the Jewish state. The Arab attacks did not succeed. Due to their rejection of the 2 states for 2 people compromise, the Arabs living in the West Bank and Gaza found themselves without any state at all, forced to live under Jordanian and Egyptian rule from 1948. Then, in 1967, the Arabs mobilized again for war. In 6 days, Israel emerged victorious and won the battles over the West Bank, Gaza, and Jerusalem. The Palestinians now found themselves under Israeli rule. Between the wars, the Israelis were hit with a steady stream of terror attacks.
Once again, terror comes to Jerusalem with the blowing up of an entire shopping center in Ben Yehuda Street, burying scores of victims under tons of rubble. Here, in the heart of the city, a devastating blast for which Arab quarters later claimed responsibility.
And the terror continues to this day. To defend against terror, the Israelis clamp down on the Palestinians. And in retaliation, the Palestinians lash out with more acts of terror. And so the Israelis clamp down again. The world media has dubbed this the endless cycle of violence. In 1993, a plan was devised to end the bloodshed and bring peace to both peoples. It was a dream that began in Oslo. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, U.S. President Bill Clinton, and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat later came together to sign a revolutionary agreement. Until Oslo, it was illegal for an Israeli to negotiate with the PLO, a self-proclaimed terror organization responsible for the murder of Jews and Israelis worldwide.
The PLO chairman, Yasser Arafat, denounced for decades as a terrorist, was welcomed at the White House.
Oslo would lay the vital groundwork for each side to achieve what they wanted most, namely, a land the Palestinians could finally call their own, and an end to the terror attacks so that the Israelis could live in peace and security.
Finally, the time is approaching when there will be safety in Israel's house, when the Palestinian people will write their own destiny.
This was the Land for Peace deal, the first real step towards fulfilling the Palestinian demands for an independent Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, lands won by Israel in the Six-Day War. The Palestinians wanted Jerusalem as the capital of their new state. The Palestinians wanted the removal of all existing Jewish homes and settlements that had developed in the West Bank and Gaza region. The Palestinians wanted to see the return to Israel proper of the descendants of the 600,000 refugees that had fled the country in the 48 and 67 wars. The Palestinians claimed that there were up to 4 million family members now eligible to make their home within the borders of Israel. Even though every one of these demands represented a potential threat to Israel's security and survival,
the time for peace has come.
Israel was willing to trade land for peace. Before all the Palestinians' demands could be considered, there needed to be a true sense of trust between the two peoples, and the Oslo Accords were designed to achieve just that.
My people are hoping that this agreement, which we are signing today, will usher in an age of peace, coexistence, and equal rights.
Mr. President, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Enough of blood and tears. Enough!
The time for war was over. This a time for peace.
It is a revolution.
The Oslo deal was unique. Rather than negotiating the major issues, they chose instead to sidestep them in order to first create an atmosphere of mutual trust and understanding. Oslo was therefore not a final peace deal, but the start of a peace process, and it called for a 5-year period in which both sides would take concrete steps that would improve relations and increase goodwill between the two peoples. At the end of this 5-year period, they would return to the negotiating table to deal with the Palestinian demands. Only this time, not as enemies, but as partners with a common goal.